Welcome back everyone for episode 3 of my journey in Terraria Calamity's Master Revengeance mode. In this episode you'll see me take on days 101 through day 150, where I got to fight familiar bosses from the vanilla game and epic new bosses from the Calamity mod. I had my share of struggles and days of triumph, with sprinkles of wonder and creation all throughout. This journey so far has been a really fun one to embark on, with so much new material in the palms of my hands and the unknown as to what exactly I could and could not do with it. Without further ado, let's dive right on into the ocean of content that Terraria Calamity has to offer. Embarking on a new chapter in this story, we have to talk about the ups and downs of my journey as they come. We last left off on day 100 with a victory over the Queen Slime and sad defeat from His Highness Duke Fishron. Back on day 90, when I defeated the Golem, a plague had befallen the jungle with the addition of new enemies as one such consequence. It was on day 102 that I fought a new boss from the Calamity mod in this underground jungle known as the Plaguebringer Goliath. Unfortunately, this attempt didn't end well, but after losing, I did remember that I could actually give myself upgrades via the Shimmer biome. So, on this day, I took some of my items to the Shimmer biome to turn them into permanent upgrades. The upgrades I got were the Vital Crystals to increase HP regeneration, the Arcane Crystal to increase mana regeneration, the Aegis Fruit to increase my defense stat, and finally I received Advanced Combat Techniques Volume 2 to increase the defenses of my NPCs. Even with the upgrades, I wasn't a match for this Plaguebringer Goliath. The entirety of my playthrough I had been mostly ignoring the Abyss, not exactly sure what time was the proper time to explore given the dangers that I believed to be lurking there. However, on days 103 and 104 I decided to change that. I figured there could be a new boss down there, potential ores, and other loot that could aid my character on his quest for complete domination over this little Terraria kingdom that was being built. So, I went home and prepared myself to, as I said in the intro, dive right on into the ocean of content that Terraria Calamity has to offer. This included equipping various accessories that would help me see in the Abyss, and allow me to breathe more easily and not succumb to the immense pressure that builds up when you are so far down in the Abyss. Feeling as ready as I could and filled with wondrous thoughts, I took to the Western Ocean and jumped in, sinking and sinking until it got darker and darker. Quickly I noticed that there were ancient treasure chests filled with loot, including new potions and accessories for me to potentially use in the future. As I dived further in, I then noticed that there was in fact a new ore located down here as well, called Scoria ore. This was something I had hoped to find, so to see that my thoughts turned fruitful was a pleasantry upon my mind. Something not so pleasant though was the eeriness of this place. It was dark and scary, filled with lots of mobs and creepy music, and it was a completely unknown world to me. I had no idea what lurked in its depths, just like our oceans in real life. I don't even know what. Idolist. What the fuck? The treasure chests I had been looting contained accessories to help me explore deeper and special torches to help guide my way to the bottom. It was once I got nearer to the darkest of the depths that I began to see the lights of blue, a new material located at the bottom known as luminol, which could be used in a variety of crafting recipes. However, collecting this luminol came at a cost. I was stealing from the creatures in the depths of the Abyss, and they were not happy about it. And yeah, I'm in the Abyss. This is scary. There's all kinds of hard enemies around here. Oh my god. 480,000. Oh! I'm fucking dead. I'm fucking dead. Go. 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 Get me out, get me out. Having died, I took all the knowledge and materials I had just gained to then craft new items and begin slaying more bosses. On day 105, I fought and killed Cryogen, hoping it would spawn more cryonic ore since I mined all of it already. But this was unsuccessful. I then crafted the Dreadmine Sentry Staff, which was a summoning weapon that created a large radius of mines to blow enemies up. Using this new Sentry Staff and a water-based ranged weapon, I took on the Plaguebringer Goliath and died when it had about 22,000 HP left. Day 106, I fought the Lunatic Cultist and died. I then went back to the Plaguebringer Goliath and died again, but this time it had about 7,000 HP left, so I was obviously making progress and would hopefully soon slay this boss. Lucky Day 7 plus 100 started out not so lucky, as I died but then used all of my failures to craft the best means of strategy for me to bring my own plague upon this new jungle boss in a battle known as Plaguebringer David versus Plaguebringer Goliath. Oh my god. With that victory sealed and the boss's fate crushed by my hands, I had received no good loot in my eyes, but I did obtain the faith and confidence to continue my reign of destruction throughout the realm. So, on day 108, I went to the Astral Infection biome to summon and take my chances against the Astrum Aureus boss. Well, that didn't work out on day 108, but I knew how to better my odds. I transferred my heart statues to the arena so that way I could have more HP accessible to me during the battle. However, this proved ineffective twice over on day 109. I then thought that using better potions might give me another edge in this fight. Since I hate fishing, I refused to fish to get the crafting materials to make some of the better potions in the game. I knew that I could craft better potions by using blood orbs, which could craft virtually any potion you want should you have enough. The only problem was that I didn't have enough. I couldn't remember where to get them, and I thought maybe it was by killing the Perforators boss, which I did, and that turned out to be incorrect. Then on day 110, I used the Shimmer Biome once more and threw the Traveling Merchant's hat into it to permanently upgrade the number of items the Traveling Merchant sold on his future visits. I then fought, for the very first time, the Crimson boss we all know and love, the Brain of Cthulhu, hoping to once again get blood orbs. The Crimson was known for having blood samples, so I figured it would make sense that blood orbs would drop from the Crimson Biome enemies or bosses. Again, I was wrong, but it didn't hurt to cross another boss's name off of my hit list. That night, I decided to fight a Blood Moon. It was here that I finally realized I could obtain blood orbs from certain enemies that I killed during the Blood Moon. Some dropped more than others, but my minions were strong enough that I could pretty much AFK all night long and farm blood orbs, which I really wanted to better my odds in the future for boss battles. On day 111, I fought the Great Sand Shark in the desert because I knew it would likely drop a grand scale as it was an apex predator. I thought this would be a useful thing to have, but it really wasn't. However, I got to cross another name off, so a win is a win, am I right? Day 112, I fought the Martian Madness event, not getting any items I particularly cared for, but I did get some relics to display, and that was worth it in itself. Soaring into day 113, I wanted to take on Astrum Aureus once more, but this time more prepared with the knowledge of its attack patterns, a decent arena with healing prowess, and potions gulped down my throat, all in hopes of slaying the boss from quite literally out of this world. Astrology empowered, a faint ethereal click can be heard from the dungeon. By slaying a god fallen from the stars, the astral enemies had become empowered, and a faint ethereal click was heard in the dungeon. Before I went to find out what this click was, I had first to consume the Starlight Fuel Cell dropped from the boss, which permanently increased my Adrenaline mode damage by 15% and damage reduction by 5%. A worthy upgrade from a hard-fought victory. Now that it's day 114 and Astrum Aureus is dead, I needed to go and find out what that ethereal click sound was. So, I went to the dungeon, and there I found the astral chest now unlocked since the boss's defeat. While I believe that the items inside the chest were probably pretty good to use, I didn't want to or need to use them because they were all pretty much geared towards the rogue class, the class I have yet to try. Darting and diving my way across the world, I now wanted to see how I fared in battle against Anahita and Leviathan, the ocean biome boss I accidentally discovered all that time ago. Whilst unsure of my chances of victory, just like the aquatic scourge from days of old, I had to keep trying because one of these times I'm bound to come out on top. Sure enough, victory was to be had this time around, and victory is what I got. Unfortunately, I didn't quite care for the boss drops, but crossing their names off my hit list and seeing how their death might impact the world was worth all of the trouble. The boss fight was definitely an interesting one, fighting two different styles of bosses essentially at the same time, and holy crap, that Leviathan took up like the entirety of my screen, so it was definitely a boss to remember in my books. On a special Zombies day of day 115, I crafted the Miracle Fruit consumable, which gave me a permanent upgrade of plus 25 HP, and I was beginning to think about how I might want to change some aspects of my world. If I'm going to have to continuously traverse the world, I want it to look prettier and have more builds throughout, so I needed to go into a period of creation. On day 116, I began this new chapter of my journey through Terraria Calamity Master Revengeance mode by crafting a set of hydrothermic armor from the scoria bars I had mined down in the abyss. I then began my planning for terraforming and purifying the world around me. I had a thought to dig out a large area on the western side of my home base to start crafting other potential biomes and builds. I then proceeded to spend days 117 through 119 terraforming and purifying the world. I deleted entire mountainsides and purified areas of both Crimson and Corruption. I was tired of random Corruption enemies flying at me at what seemed like a large percentage of my world. I also had thoughts of building a hollow biome so that way I could get other items and accessories, have access to the hollow biome pylon for teleportation, make NPCs happier, and just to gain access to hollowed bosses such as the Empress of Light. These days were easy and relaxed because the only thing I had to do was mine and shoot green goo at the purples and reds of my world. Come day 120, I explored some of the black parts of my map to lighten them up and see what potential loot I may have missed out on. It was during this day that I mined a line straight through the bottom of hell. At this point, I wasn't too sure about the supposed story that was going on in this mod. When certain bosses were killed, they dropped items that gave info about some of the characters' experiences in the world from the mod pack. I wasn't fully sure what they all meant or led towards, but I always read them just in case. I had begun to wonder if at some point there would be a lab boss for me to face, and surely there had to be. My first thought was to then start decrypting the schematics I had been finding around the labs of the world in the very early days of my explorations. That's how I spent the entirety of day 121, by decrypting schematics and testing crafting recipes to see what items or boss spawners I could maybe make then. Day 122, I made an Ankh charm to then be able to craft the Ankh shield. My mission then became obtaining cryonic ore to craft the Asgard's Valor accessory. I wanted this period of my journey to be about filling up parts of my world with builds, purifying the world, and creating potentially better accessories for when I began boss and event hunting again. It was on this day that I crafted the Blood Orange consumable to permanently upgrade my HP by plus 25. Day 123, I went fishing for ice crates to get ice skates and had no luck, and boy do I hate fishing. It's just so boring to me. Day 124, I was able to find cryonic ore from cryonic slimes in the underground ice biome. I used the ore and other materials to craft the Asgard's Valor accessory with the Ankh shield, as well as making a void bag and void bank to act as an extra inventory for item overflow. Since the party girl was having a party and I talked to her first, I also got the slice of cake buff, which gave movement and mining speed buffs for a short duration of time, but would come in handy when I had to fight later on. Day 125, I continued terraforming and then started creating the hollow biome on day 126. It was on the night of day 126 that I fought the Pumpkin Moon for the first time to see any potential changes and to get loot that I needed to craft minion accessories I was wanting to use. Fortunately for me, I didn't do too bad on my first encounter with this event and got all of the items I had been looking to get, whether it was to be used now or in the future. On day 127, I had to go and kill the Wall of Flesh very quickly to obtain a Summoner's Emblem, which I then used with other accessories to craft Status's Blessing, which was a summoner accessory that increased my maximum number of minions by 2, gave plus 10% summoning damage, better minion knockback, and gave my minions the power to inflict Holy Flames upon hits. This accessory was a vital one for me to have made at this point. I then continued with the work on the Hollowed biome on days 128 through day 130. I wasn't fully sure how I wanted to design it because I'm most obviously not the best builder, but I wanted to make it look at least a little bit decent. I know that the more you build, you should in theory get better, but I still didn't have the eye for design that I've seen so many other Terrarians have, but it's still cool to make something of your own, and building this hollow biome in city was just one example of that. I spent the night of day 130 by fighting the Frost Moon event for the same reasons I fought the Pumpkin Moon event, but ultimately didn't care for any of the drops I had received, for the most part. On day 131, I built a small arena to fight the Empress of Light, and then found out I had to make a few more tiny hollowed biome islands near the top of the arena, so that way I wasn't getting the peaceful effects of being in a town, which would then allow the spawner for the Empress of Light to begin appearing. On day 132, I purified the Crimson around the world. I found a cute underground jungle temple thing that I was definitely meant to find much earlier in the game, so its loot just wasn't really good right now. And then I also added some more stuff to the Hollowed biome. With the Hollowed biome essentially done and lots of the world purified, it was time to dive into the next chapter of the game, where I went to take on several more bosses and begin my push to make it into the endgame. meaning all of the content that came after killing the Moonlord. The day is day 133. I'm feeling satisfied enough with my previous work in building and preparing for the fights to come ahead. My mission now, by day 150, is to defeat all of the bosses leading up to and including the Moonlord. So on this very day, I sat in the newly made hollow biome, waiting for the Empress Butterfly to spawn in. I had everything I felt necessary for the fight on me, and was willing to give this fight a go here and now, fighting one of the most beautiful boss fights in all of Terraria. There we go, there it is. Now we get to fight. That's alive. There we go. Literally 100 HP. Beautiful. Empress Light defeated. Wow. That fight was probably one of the most fun fights I've had so far. I love the rainbow colors that fly all over the screen and all of the dodging you have to do just in order to be successful. It's like being in Mario Kart's Rainbow Road fighting this glorious battle to the death. Definitely one of my favorite battles, but with that victory meant I had a thirst for more. So on day 134, I set out once again to attempt to triumph over the lunatic cultists. And just like that, the battle was over. Not too bad. And the world was descending into chaos. The celestial creatures had begun their invasion of Terraria, and the 4 pillars spawned throughout the world with enemies of Solar, Vortex, Nebula, and Stardust. I began by taking out the Vortex pillar, as that was the one immediately available to me at the location of the cultist's death. By flying in the air and defeating the enemies of this pillar, I got Vortex fragments, and also had the Ancient Manipulator dropped from the Lunatic Cultist that I could use to potentially make some better gear before having to fight the Moonlord. The next pillar to defeat was the Nebula pillar, and all went well with that. Then on day 135, I had anticipated this day to be the time where I would kill the Moonlord, so I set out on a quest to defeat the Solar and Stardust pillars. The Solar pillar was very easy to defeat, since I had the entire area surrounding the pillar flattened, and I just had to stay on the ground the whole time firing away at the enemies. I then took on the Stardust pillar, which I actually did die during, but nonetheless, it wasn't this crazy difficult challenge. However, with the defeat of the final pillar, I knew that I was only moments away from the vanilla game's final boss battle, the Moonlord. So once this pillar was destroyed, I hurried home to get all of my potions and items I would need before my world was invaded by the Lord himself. The time has now come to end the Moonlord's life once and for all. How exciting. Wow, that sure hurt. Oh shit, yep, well, wow. Ooh. I got fucking dropped in a second. Alright. Well, that was a bit anticlimactic. Yeah, I got absolutely, like, rocked. But that's okay. You live and you learn, and fortunately for me, I was able to craft the Moonlord boss spawner, so I could basically fight him whenever I wanted to without having to do the pillars, the cultists, none of that. I still had other bosses I wanted to defeat anyways before the Moonlord, so dying really wasn't that bad of a thing. In fact, on day 136, I prepped with the heart statues for a fight with Duke Fishron and spent the entirety of the night harvesting blood orbs. It was then I had arrived at the sunrise of day 137 and prepared myself to take on the Duke of the Ocean, Fishron. pistol, baby! While the fight was kind of a crazy one with the Duke going invisible and cyclones flying around, I still managed to come out on top. Unfortunately, I didn't get any good drops, and I was hoping to get the wings, even if only for aesthetic purposes. Regardless, it was time to move on. The next boss on my list was Astrium Deus, an out-of-this-world duo of celestial worms to be fought in the Astral Infection biome. To fight this boss, you had to offer a Titan heart to the altar in the biome, and the hearts were obtained from astral enemies. I was not fully sure if this boss was even meant to be killed before the Moonlord, but I thought it was possible, so I was going to try. It kind of reminded me of my struggles with the Aquatic Scourge, because that was a hard mode boss that I was able to fight and spawn back in pre-hard mode with a million failures because it just simply wasn't the right time to be fighting it. Either way, I brought my heart statues over to the Astral Infection to have access to better healing options during the Astrium Deus fight. I also placed a bunch of background walls in the arena because the Dreadmine summon sentry that I had worked best when there were background walls for the mines to actually spawn on. I took on the Astrium Deus fight this night, but it was ultimately unsuccessful. So, on day 139, I got rid of the floating island acting as an obstacle in the Astral Infection arena. This way I would have more platforms to maneuver and space to escape, and whilst this was an upgrade, I still failed at winning. Day 140, I fought the solar eclipse all day long, and had to spend so much time going through all the loot that they ended up dropping. However, I did end the day by making a Stardust Dragon staff that I would pair with my current summoning weapon to have potentially larger damage output against Astrium Deus, because I figured that the Stardust Dragon might actually be able to fly through the entirety of the worm at one time, doing loads of damage. On day 141, I was thinking about how I might be able to triumph over the Astrium Deus boss despite all that I have done thus far. Thinking about the fight, I realized that I didn't really need my speed boots because I wasn't really running all that much. So I changed out the boots for an accessory that added damage and defense to my kit, and once more, flew my way on over to the Astral Infection with Titan Heart in hand and a determination to send yet another set of worms into the grave. With that win, and honestly pretty damn enjoyable boss fight, the Seal of the Stars had been broken and I could now mine all of the astral ore that I'd been passing for days and days and days on end. I ended that night with a few hundred ore in my inventory from the initial start impact that landed all that time ago. Soaring like a shooting star into day 142, I crafted a giant load of astral bars with the astral ore I had got yesterday. I then crafted the consumable known as the Ethereal Core to permanently increase my maximum mana by 50. I then proceeded to use the astral bars to make a full set of astral armor, which was a very good set of armor to have. I received several bonuses such as increased damage, increased movement speed, plus 3 more max minions, additional HP, and additional mana. With all of the upgrades on this day, I feel like utilizing a mage setup would be a good idea, so that's what I ended up doing. On day 143, I crafted the Nebula Blaze magic weapon from Nebula Fragments to use in a fight with the Moonlord. Since I had an excess amount of potions, and I had the boss spawner, I could pretty much spawn him in whenever I wanted to, and as many times as I wanted, and I'll just let you see how that went. So they weren't the best attempts, but I was learning, and now it's about to get serious, because on day 144, I really wanted to be sure that I could kill the Moonlord before day 150. I then got myself prepared and had begun using the Rod of Discord to teleport away from his death laser when the time was right. With everything in hand, I took to my lovely boss arena to put an end to the Lord Almighty himself with every ounce of power left in my body. it, right? I don't believe it's it. No way. Oh. Well. Yes, the glorious credits of Terraria had rolled with the defeat of the Moonlord, but the game was still only just beginning. With the defeat of the Moonlord, his goodie bag not only gave me basically all of his drops, but the profaned flame began blazing fiercely, the cosmic tears began watching me, shrieks started echoing from the dungeon, and a cold and dark energy materialized in space, and so much more. The Calamity mod was coming into full effect now, as the remaining content of the game was all going to be brand new, and I was extremely excited to see what would come next. Whilst I didn't know what all these new things meant quite yet, I did know that the enemies of the dungeon started dropping a new material called Polterplasm, which would surely come into play soon. Then, unminable exodium clusters formed in the sky, and new enemies emerged in hell, dropping unholy essence, just to name a few. But before I could really dive into this next stage of the game, I needed to give my world just a little bit more of a makeover. So that's where we enter Chapter 7. Although I am not the best builder, I wanted to give the world even more character than it already had. So I had many builds to get started on, and on day 145, I put my not so great building skills to the test as I begun building a Hall of Victory, where I would put all of my boss trophies and relics, and also started on a new plant farm. Days 146 and 147, I continued on this plant farm, simply expanding its size and changing the look from the previous model. Not that I needed it, but just because I could. Then, after work on the plant farm, I started work on the base. I was tearing down all of my old structure of home that served as my base of operations all throughout hard mode up until the defeat of the Moonlord. It was a bit of a bittersweet thing to do, I must admit. I'm not sure if I regret it, but once I really started, there was no stopping it. That meant that days 148 through day 150 were all spent experimenting with different block types and constructing an entirely new base. I don't have the best eye for building, so please don't judge me too hard, but I figured it was something different and on a larger scale just because I could. However, I didn't have the time to finish this chapter in this episode, so if you want to see how my base and builds turn out, as well as how I continue to venture on through Terraria Calamity Master Revengeance mode, post Moonlord, then be sure to tune in to the next episode where I slay a number of the new bosses found here in Terraria's greatest mod pack yet.